Hey, Sean, just wanted to check in and see if you had any injury updates coming out of yesterday's game.
Everybody came out pretty good except for Duke Shelley. He got his hamstring, so that's unfortunate, and he'll probably be a candidate for IR.
And then as far as giving Davis Allen and Hunter Long some more looks, what factored into that in terms of maybe what you saw from them in practice and just beyond that?
Yeah, I think it was just what you mentioned. Those guys have done a good job in practice. I think we wanted to make a concerted effort to be able to get some other guys some snaps, and Higby's done such a good job, but to take a little bit off his workload, just considering all the work that he's gotten, continue to develop the depth at that position. And, Nick Caley's done a really good job. And then we had another guy that wasn't active who's, more than capable of filling in and playing snaps when he's done that in previous games with Bryson Hopkins as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gary.
Hey, Sean. It's been a while since you had the opportunity, that you guys won 2 games in a row, that you've been able to kind of go week to week without having to reset. Are you conscious of that at all? And
only because you asked me, Gary. No, yes, we're conscious of it. Here's what I would tell you. I think one of the things that's been fun about this group is they take it a week at a time. I do think that momentum can be a powerful thing. And I think we talked about it a little bit after the game, continuing to learn how to capitalize on opportunities to play complementary ball, to be able to finish games, to be able to, recognize and identify those moments that are key and critical, to be able to put yourself over the top. And I think those are things that you have to learn. We've got a lot of guys been a part of, a lot of teams that have won, but every single year is a new year. And what I'm really proud of is that one of the things that we challenged these guys coming off the bye was, let's focus on what we can control. And it still is that 1 day at a time, 1 week at a time mindset mentality. And every streak starts at 1. And, after that bye, these guys have gotten that to 2. And by taking it 1 day at a time, 1 game at a time, we're going to see with a great opportunity in front of us to see what we can do against a really tough opponent in the Cleveland Browns this coming week. And I was aware of it, but what I am pleased with is this team's ability to take it 1 day at a time, 1 game at a time, while also being able to build on some momentum that they've established. And I think a lot of things have been on display over the last couple of weeks that we can learn from. And winning each of those 2 games was reflected in a little bit different manner, which I think is powerful.
And how is that for you personally? I mean, to be able to come into the office, on the Monday after a game and not necessarily have to reset, and to be able to for you as the head coach, to be able to kind of keep that, rolling as opposed to resetting every week.
It's a big deal, and I don't necessarily know if you have to reset, because every single week entails evaluating, doing an after action review on what we can do better and how we move forward, regardless of what the outcome is. But it certainly is a lot more enjoyable. And I think most importantly, the feelings that, you have when a lot of work goes into those 3.5-hour windows that you're allotted on a weekly basis, and to see those guys and the joy that they have for getting that kind of result, that's what makes it all worthwhile. And we want to continue to do that. And it makes it, it's definitely a little bit different mood, as you can imagine, Gary.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Adam.
Hey, Sean, like we talked about yesterday, second week in a row, the defense has given up a touchdown, then made those in-game adjustments to really clamp down. I know you've got a lot going on when adjustments are being made on your own side, but what stands out to you about the way Raheem approaches those in-game adjustments?
They do a great job. I don't necessarily know if it's adjustments or just executing the way that we're capable of. There wasn't anything. I think our coaches do a phenomenal job. And if those adjustments are necessary, but in a lot of instances, and yesterday, for example, it was more about, hey, let's just settle in. Let's play the way that we're capable of. Let's execute the calls. And then let's just do our 1/11th, every single play, and try to play as close to 11 as 1. And I thought our guys did a great job, and I thought they brought the plan to life. It wasn't necessarily as much as adjustments as opposed to just bringing the game plan and executing the calls that Raheem and the defensive coaches made after that, and playing good situationally. So I think it was more that than it was necessarily having to make any sort of altering adjustments, because they kind of they did a good job of executing their first drive and then ultimately punching in the 2-point conversion. But then our guys settled in and played the way that we thought that they could.
What goes into like figuring out how to walk the line between that's just execution versus we need to change something in the game plan when you're going full speed in the middle of a game?
Yeah, I think it's about being able to see what the problems are. And if you need to find solutions that are outside the framework of the execution, then that's what requires changes and adjustments. And that's where it's so important for all the coaches to be able to see the right things, to be able to communicate and stay connected as one when there's 11 guys on each side of the football, trying to do things that are not necessarily in alignment with what we're trying to get done, whether that be defensively, offensively, or in the kicking game. And so if there's certain things that are totally different or outside the framework of the intent of the calls, that's when, changes need to be altered and adjusted in regards to, those game time adjustments. But in some instances, if you say, all right, it's a misfit, we didn't match up a certain pass concept based on the coverage contour we were in, we didn't hit this blitz pattern the right way, or we didn't have a protection pickup, so it's more about if you need to solve problems that are outside the framework of the intent of the original call is where those major adjustments come into play.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sarah?
Hey, Sean, is Matthew's thumb 100% or is he still healing from that sprain?
I think 100% would be probably a strong percentage. I think he felt a lot better than he did last week. And I thought he was able to make some incredibly high-level throws that not many people in the world can make when they're feeling at 100%. But his 100% is pretty special. I think he'd have to tell you that. I do know that it felt a lot better than what it did last week, Sarah. And I think there was a couple of just, last little right before that release point adjustments that he made that demonstrated that thing was feeling a little bit better, that are throws that very few people in the world can make. So I know he's taking steps in the right direction. To say 100%, I would defer to him on being able to tell you that percentage.
And then I know Raheem has had head coaching interviews in the past. What has he done maybe with this young defense that you've seen that you hadn't seen from him before? Or is there anything that's just stood out to you this year with the way he's coached?
He's been the same great coach that I've always known. He's a great leader. He elevates people and situations that he's a part of. And I think that's the greatest sign of leadership. And so, we always talk about trying to help guys reach and realize their highest potential. I think we're seeing a lot of growth and development from a lot of people that he has an influence on. And it certainly isn't exclusive to just the defense. Raheem influences this whole building. He influences this coaching staff and these players in a real positive manner. But, it certainly isn't to take any credit away from the job he's done, but I've seen the consistent great coach this year that I've seen each of the last couple of years since he's been here, and what I've always witnessed from afar when we worked together in Washington. That's just who he is, and he's as consistent as it gets.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jordan?
Hey, Sean. We've seen Matthew Stafford make every throw that exists and maybe some that don't exist. And I'm just wondering, just from you guys' perspective, a game like yesterday when the screens are so effective, what does a quarterback have to do against the rush when the screen is being set up with the timing? What are some of the things that make a simple a play look simple on the outside when it's really not that simple?
I think that's one of those plays, in particular the screen game, where does it feel authentic and genuine to some of the other things that you're trying to marry it up with, whether that be, off of an action or off of the drop back, and then how can you influence and entice guys to continue to rush? And I think the quarterback is instrumental in the success of the screen game, being able to change the release point, the eye manipulation, all the different things like that. And he does as good a job as there is. And I think in a lot of instances, people say, oh, it's just a screen, but there's just so many intricacies that the quarterback position entails that the great ones, they just do a good job of making a monotonous or what people would look at as an elementary play. And it ends up turning into an explosive because of the way that they can kind of set it up. And then it puts everybody in a better position to be able to get their blocks set up. The backs in better phasing with those guys. And those couple things were definitely on display yesterday with what he was able to do. But it is there's an art to it without a doubt.
Thanks. And then pivoting slightly, do you think Quentin Lake will be back this week?
I would say that would probably be probably not this week. But again, we're going to see how he does. I was really pleased with the way that Rush Yeast and Jacoby Durant played in his absence. John Johnson's playing a lot of snaps and doing a heck of a job at safety. I thought he and Fuller were excellent yesterday. We'll take it a day at a time. I'm not ready to quite rule him out, but I think that would be tough for him to make it back for this game.
And then when he's been on the field and also when he's not been on the field, the rotations and the way that a lot of those DBs and the sub packages are playing like hybrid players, essentially. What have you noticed from that, especially over the last 2 weeks? And are you noticing that as kind of a trend trickling up from the college game?
Yes, and I think some of it is by necessity, but also some of it is the versatility that the way these guys are, trained, and you just see some of the different things that they can do. I mean, you really have a handful of guys that can play safety, they can play the star position. And when you can do that, you can create a lot of different looks for the defenses to have to prepare for. And partly that's number one, that's a credit to the skill sets and the versatility of these guys that you're talking about. But it also does, give you the ability to be able to present a variety of different things that make it a little bit more challenging for offenses, which is a good thing from a defensive vantage point.